This is how to make money with the Model Context Protocol, or MCP for short, which you should learn about if you want to know how to take advantage of AI fully in the coming weeks to months. Because if you just look at Google Trends, you can see that MCP has already exceeded the combined search demand of other trending topics in AI. And I myself went through more than 300 MCP servers and consumed and read hours worth of content on MCP in order to teach you the top 3 ways that you can make money with MCP right now, as well as a full downloadable workflow that implements these MCP methods in a way that's simple to understand. And what's great is, since we are using no-code tools, anyone can do it and anyone can understand it, even if you're a complete beginner. All you literally just need to know is how to drag and drop things and you're set. And this video will also use the least amount of jargon to make sure that even if you're non-technical, you can understand what we are doing. And last but not least, if you are watching this, that means that you are still quite early. Because if we go back to Google Trends, you can see that people who know about MCP is still very small compared to those who know about AI's most popular tool, ChatGPT. Which means that if you invest some time today to watch till the end, you may just learn the most valuable skill in AI before anyone else. By the way, if you're new here, my name is Jay, and it is my sole mission to make AI easy to learn for anyone who wants to, especially if you want to start earning from this wave. And in fact, to make this as easy as possible, I've collated all the resources and prompts you need for this lesson in this page in our community, with a specific call out for this blueprint file, which you can just download and import to the tool that we will be using, and it will create that automation workflow for you without even having to lift a finger. And if in case you're not yet part of the community, check out the link in the video description. And here we have tons of lessons that are step-by-step, easy-to-follow guides designed to walk you through everything related to AI and automation, whether you're a beginner or already deep into artificial intelligence. And you can see within each lesson are all the resources and prompts and the blueprint files that you will need in order to get you set up. We also have a growing community of AI professionals doing some really cool stuff with artificial intelligence here. So there's a lot of knowledge sharing. So if you're looking for a network of people who are into this space, then this might be exactly what you need. So if you want access to these AI tutorials, including ready-to-load automation blueprints, and a community of AI professionals, then check out the RoboNuggets community just in the link in the video description. All right, let's dip into this. So the framework of what we'll learn is actually very simple, because before we can understand how to make money with MCP, we first need to understand what MCP is in the first place. So we'll be explaining it in the simplest way possible. But first, let's do a recap. Because for you to understand what MCP is, you first need to understand what an AI agent is. And very simply, if you think about a chatbot like ChatGPT, what it basically allows you to do is it gives you the actions that you need to do, while an AI agent does the actions for you. So let's say if you want to order a burger from McDonald's, you put that into ChatGPT, it will basically direct you to mcdonalds.com to order. It can't really do the ordering for you. But an AI agent, which is coming up in a few months to years, if you ask it to order a burger from McDonald's, then it will probably ask you to confirm your order and then will proceed to buy it if you want. And to take another example, which can be set up right now, if you want to send an email and you ask ChatGPT to do that, it will probably give you a draft of that email to copy-paste to Gmail. But an AI agent goes beyond that and actually sends the email for you. But there is a huge problem with AI agents right now, and that is simply the fact that it is quite difficult to set up an AI agent because every action that they can take needs to be set up separately. So if we imagine our AI agent to have their own computer or tablet where they do all of their tasks and actions, if you were the AI agent, you would prefer to just have one Gmail app in your computer, right? But the problem right now is each and every action that they can take, there is a separate app for it. So imagine if in your own computer, you need to open up a separate app to be able to read mails, to be able to send mails, and so on and so forth. It would be quite confusing, and so it would be for your AI agent as well, which is obviously not ideal. But the thing is, that is actually how it's set up right now. So if you take, for example, in n8n, which is one of the popular AI agent builder softwares out there, that is exactly how it's set up. So you would have a different node for sending emails via Gmail, for replying to emails, for creating drafts, and so on. And you, who is the AI agent builder, would also need to set this up one by one. And if you unpack each of those nodes, these are direct screenshots from n8n, and you can see that each action, they all have different formats and different attributes that you would need to set up, which is not ideal for yourself as the builder and for the AI agent given the variety of actions that they need to take. So the value add that MCP does is that it takes the AI agent setup from this to something closer to this, where you basically centralize all of the actions that a certain application does, in this case Gmail, into one single node, which is obviously good news for your AI agent because now it is much simpler. So that's well and good, but how does MCP actually do that? Well, the short of it is that MCP sets a protocol that applications need to follow so AI agents can understand those applications. Or in other words, each app needs to provide their MCP recipe book for AI agents to use. Because if you think about a recipe book, that obviously has recipe pages inside of it. And each of those recipes would have a description of what that dish is about. What are the ingredients that you as the chef should bring into the table so that you can create that dish, and a specific set of instructions which you can execute to get to the final product. And so it's the same with an application's MCP server. So an MCP server, for example, Gmail's, is basically going to be a recipe book where each page corresponds to a tool or action. For example, there may be a tool or action around checking unread emails that's named as this. And obviously there's a couple more that you can do with Gmail, but each of those tools or actions would have a description, which is important because this is being fed to the AI agent as well so that they can understand what this tool really does. Each tool will also have a set of parameters or ingredients that the AI agent will need to bring to the table in order to use this action. So for example, the agent would need to define who's the sender or when's the date of the unread emails that it's looking for, which is quite common if you have done it yourself and have searched through your mail. And each tool will also have a package, which is going to be a set of instructions on how to execute that tool. And usually that package is going to be a piece of code which you don't need to know about as the agent or as the user, because in this case, for example, it's a piece of code that is stored in Google's servers or computers somewhere in the US. And your agent just needs to click a button to call on that set of instructions by typing a piece of text such as this. So that's basically MCP in a nutshell. It's like a recipe book that gives instructions to the chef, or put in other words, it's basically a protocol that gives context to the AI model, which is also why it's called MCP, or Model Context Protocol in short. But there is another big question, right? Because yes, we talked about, let's say, Gmail having an MCP, but does that mean every application will have an MCP? And who even makes them in the first place? Well, the thing is, if you just type MCP in Google search, you'll see that it's only the past few months really that it has taken off, which is not surprising because it was first launched sometime in November. But despite that, there are actually more than 3,000 MCP servers already available in the market, and they are mostly done by the open source community. So it's basically people like you and me who are doing this out of their own interest and are creating MCP servers for Gmail, for Microsoft Teams, and literally 3,000 other applications, all done by the open source community. And that's important to understand because that's actually a key point into understanding how to make money with MCP. Because if we look at history, it doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And usually what happens in history is that when people start using this new thing, businesses would need a way to be present in that thing. So to make that more real, let's take one business, for example. Let's say McDonald's, which we know has been around for decades, even before the internet became a thing, right? But in the 90s, when people started using the internet, McDonald's needed a website to be present in the internet because that's where people are. And the method by which they created a website needed to adhere to something called TCP, which is short for Transmission Control Protocol, which we won't get into, but it's basically a way to standardize the creation of websites, similar to how MCP is now. And then somewhere in the 2000s, when people started using smartphones, McDonald's also needed an app to be present in smartphones, because how else would you order your cheeseburger if not through a smartphone app? And the protocols that McDonald's needed to adhere to is, of course, iOS for Apple and Android for everything else, because those are the only ways by which you can be present in people's smartphones. And so similarly, now in the 2020s, when people start using AI agents to do their tasks for them, McDonald's may also need an MCP server to be present for those agents, Because how else can an AI agent connect to McDonald's to order a cheeseburger for their human, right? And the protocol that seems to be most likely in creating these MCP apps would be the Model Context Protocol itself. And obviously, this is going into the predictive territory. But let's say if ChatGPT or OpenAI goes all in enabling AI agent capabilities for their app, maybe in the future, you can open your ChatGPT app and install different MCP apps in there that will basically allow ChatGPT to connect to McDonald's, to connect to different services, so that ChatGPT, as your AI agent, can actually do those tasks for you. And from recent news, it does seem that OpenAI is actually supporting the Model Context Protocol, which points to the fact that it is very likely that the MCP is going to be adopted as a way for AI agents to interact with different apps. And this is a big thing that OpenAI supports it because MCP was actually launched by their main competitor, Anthropic, sometime in November. So the fact that the two biggest players in AI, OpenAI and Anthropic, are supporting it points to brighter futures for MCP as a skill to learn if you want to get ahead in the AI space. So there, very quick, very simple explanation of MCP. If you want to get more info there, you can just talk to ChatGPT and ask more technical questions. But in a nutshell, that's what you need to understand so that we can get on with our main topic, which is how to make money with MCP. And there are basically 3 paths that you can take as of right now. And they range in difficulty as well, from things that are hard to things that are easiest, which we will actually get into a demo in just a bit. And the first of these paths is to create the MCP App Store, which is actually talked about in more detail by this great podcast from Greg Eisenberg when he interviewed Professor Rasmike about MCP. And what's great about this interview is that Professor Rasmike actually built a mock-up of an MCP App Store, which you can go to by just going to mcpappstore.com. And the idea for it is similar to any app store that you can think of, where it just shows the different set of MCP apps. And if you do an install, then you'll be able to use that tool for your AI agent. Now, obviously, the reason why we put that in the difficult bucket is because we don't know yet exactly how people will find their MCP apps. So it may be too early to dive into that space. It's possible that because ChatGPT is the one that people use so much right now, so that app store idea may be monopolized by them, but it's too early to tell, which is why I think it's in the harder part of the difficulty spectrum here. But obviously, if you have an app store, then of course, there is an opportunity to create MCP apps. And as we have talked about earlier, it's possible for you to create it for some incumbents. So the McDonald's of the world will obviously need developers still to create these MCP servers for them. And so having that skill in the next few years is going to be crucial if you want to cater to this market. Or you can also create entirely new apps for AI agents, similar to how, let's say, Uber or Airbnb became so big when smartphones became a thing. So what are those versions of services that people would want their AI agents to be able to have access to or do? And the best place to learn right now on how to create these MCP servers is, of course, the Model Context Protocol's official documentation, which we have linked also in our community. And you can refer to these different SDKs or software development kits. And it's also available in different coding languages. So if you're comfortable with Python, let's say, then you can start with that. Now, obviously, documentations like this is more in the space of developers who have experience in this platform. So it's still a bit difficult to get into right now. But since ChatGPT and other language models can actually help even a non-developer start building, then this may be a good time to invest some hours to learn these SDKs in order to get you prepared for this space. But there, the second path is for you to create MCP apps, which may still not be so accessible for some people. So the easiest and the one that we will be going through today is the third path, which is how you can create an AI agent that is using MCP. And what we will be doing is to build out this AI agent step by step and show you how you can use MCP to power the agent itself. So it's going to be what I'm calling an infinite leads AI agent that is powered by Google Maps' MCP. And its purpose, simply put, is to automatically collect leads from Google Maps, use AI to analyze each one and generate a lead score for it, which is basically going to be a measure of how ready they are to accept our services, and also create a personalized email based on the service that's best for them using the data that we are gathering from Google Maps. And just to demonstrate how it works, it's an agent that you can talk to. So for example, if I ask it to give me 5 restaurants in Sydney, what it will do is activate the agent, extract some information from Google Maps using our MCP connection. And you can see once it's finished processing, it has provided me those restaurants which you can see you can actually freely explore those 5 restaurants in Google Maps if you want a more visual representation. But the most important for us in this case is this CSV file, which if we open will show you a lot of relevant information around what those restaurants are and their address, their contact details and social media channels which you can use to reach out to them, and most importantly, these columns that our AI agent created, where it basically assigned a lead score as well as a reasoning behind that score. So for example, this lead in particular is assessed to be a good business to offer a service to because it doesn't have a website yet, it doesn't have good social media presence yet, and there's a high percentage of 1-star reviews. So most likely they will need some help to manage all of that. And you can see if you just read through these, what the different aspects are that are being analyzed by the agent, and we'll go through each of those later in full. And what's also good is that it creates a draft email for you, which you can just feed into another automation for you to be able to send it to the client of your choice. And each of these emails are customized as well based on the lead score reasoning. So you can see if you expand that, this basically talks through that this establishment can probably optimize their review management and visual content because our agent was able to identify that they don't have a lot of images or website and their reviews are mostly 1 to 2 stars. And that's actually a pretty simple workflow to set up, and it's something that you can sell as a service to businesses who are trying to find leads, or maybe you can use the leads yourself if you are running an agency yourself. And the tool that we will be using to build this AI agent is called n8n, which if you don't know what n8n is, it's basically a no-code automation builder, quite similar to Zapier or make.com. But you can see in Google Trends that it has risen in popularity quite recently because of how flexible and easy it is to make AI agents from within this tool. And to build out the agent, we will basically have 2 steps to the process. We will first set up our self-hosting to n8n, then we will build the actual workflow. And just to quickly explain what this self-hosting means, usually when you start using n8n, you do it via signing up to their website called n8n.io. And this is actually the cloud instance of n8n. So the automation workflows that you create are being stored and managed by n8n, the company itself. Meanwhile, if you self-host n8n, then your workflows are basically going to be stored by yourself in the computer or the server of your choice. And just to do a quick comparison, the reason why we will be self-hosting in this instance is simply because at the time of recording, the Cloud n8n doesn't have access to MCP yet, while the self-hosted version does. And also there are a few benefits to it, such as the cost. So in Cloud n8n, the lowest price tier is something like 27 USD per month, while when you do the self-hosted version, it can be as low as $5 a month, or even less if you have your own custom personal setup. That said, it does take a few extra steps to set up, but if you follow along, then you'll be able to try out self-hosting n8n in the easiest way possible. And the tool that we will be using to self-host is called railway.com. So if you just click on that link at our community, it will take you to Railway's homepage where you can just sign up. And just to quickly step back, Railway is basically a service when you can hire servers or computers for rent. And the computers that they use run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which is basically what you need for self-hosting a service like n8n. And the great thing about them is how simple everything is to set up. First, you need to sign in and make an account with Railway. So just click on sign in and click continue with GitHub. And if in case you don't have a GitHub account, just go ahead and create an account here. And once that's done, you can click sign in and authorize Railway app. And the reason why Railway uses GitHub is simply because GitHub is one of the most common ways by which developers and people in the tech world share resources to each other. So now you can just accept the terms and conditions of Railway as well as their fair use policy. Feel free to read through that as intended. And now it will direct you to create a new project, which you can just click on deploy a template and go ahead and search n8n. And you can see there's several options here, but the template that's most popular and most reliable would be this n8n with workers. So go ahead and click that. And you can see that these are ready to be deployed. So just click deploy. And if in case you encounter an error, it's likely because Railway has started implementing limited trials at this point. So you will just need to upgrade your plan to the hobbyist tier, which is only $5 a month. So that should be accessible for most people. So once you've subscribed and you have the hobby plan already, just go to railway.com/dashboard, click again on new, And now if you deploy n8n with workers, that same template, so just go ahead and wait for it to finish. And once it's successful, you should have this activity log that says successful on all of those 4 deployments. So feel free to maybe screenshot this and paste it to ChatGPT if you want to understand some of these other workers here. But the key piece that we need is this primary node, which if you just click on that, it will provide you this link, which you can see is being hosted by Railway themselves. And if you click on that, there you go. You now have your self-hosted version of n8n. So similar to n8n, you just need to create your own account here. So go ahead and sign up to that. Then click next. And once you get your account set up, just click on get started. And this is an option for you to get some paid features for free. So you can enable that if you wish by sending yourself a free license key. And there you go, you are set, and you can now create your very first workflow in your self-hosted n8n instance. So now that we've done the self-hosting in n8n, it is time to build the workflow itself. And to do that, you just need to click on create workflow here at the top right, and then name this workflow with whatever is appropriate. And just click on add first step. And this first step is always going to be a trigger. So if you just search for chat, you'll be able to select the chat trigger and just click away for now. And that basically allows you to chat to your AI agent, which we can set up in the succeeding step. So just click on plus, search for AI agent, and click on that. And before we go any further, if it's your first time using n8n, it's probably a good idea to just step back to explain the design of working in n8n, because every node in n8n is actually configured the same way. There's basically 3 sections when you open each node up. And the one at the left is the input section, which is basically attributes that are coming from all the nodes at the left that precedes the node that you are configuring. This green section would be the configurations, basically what you want your node to be doing. And then this section at the right would be the output area, which shows the values that it will be passing along to the succeeding nodes. So you can see here in our AI agent node, it is working pretty much the same. And obviously the input will be a chat message in this case. So there's no info there yet, but to set this up, just make sure that this is set to connected chat trigger node, and it will automatically get the chat input that we can try out in a bit. So once that's done, just click away, and you can see there are a couple of sub branches here, which you need to set up. And the one in asterisk is the chat model. So that is the one that is required. So just click on that, and you can use anything here that you want. You can see they're all language models like DeepSeek, OpenAI, and Google Gemini. For the purpose of this tutorial, a good service that is actually good to learn as well is this OpenRouter chat model. So just click on that. I linked the URL for OpenRouter here. You can see it's basically a service where you can switch between language models quite easily. So I found that it is a nifty tool to learn. So just go ahead and sign up here. And to set up the OpenRouter chat model in n8n, basically you would need a credential to connect with. So just click on that, click on create new credential, and you can see that it is requesting for an API key. So if you go back to OpenRouter, and once you've signed up, just head to settings and click on API keys here on the left, and just go ahead and click on create key, give it a name, and there you go. You now have your new key, which you can copy and paste into this field. So click on save. And there you can see the connection has tested successfully. And by the way, this API key is also acting like a password, so don't give it away. For myself, for example, I'll just be deleting them after this tutorial. And what's great about OpenRouter is that with that credential connected, you can actually see that you can just switch between models quite easily here. And if you just search on free, then you can find several models here that are free to use without incurring any cost, which is always good. So feel free to try that out in your own time. But for this tutorial, I suggest to use GPT-4o because that provides the best results for what we are about to do. And now you can see that this has been properly set up without any reds or errors. And just click on save. So now if you click on open chat, you can see it brings up this chat window where if I just talk to my AI agent, you can see it uses GPT-4o to reply back to us with a proper hello. So now if we look at our end in my workflow, you can see that the next thing we need to set up is our MCP connection to Google Maps. And for us to use MCP in n8n, we actually need to install the node for it. So if you just click this link in our community, that will take you to this GitHub page, which is basically just documentation around the community node itself. But the way to install it is quite simple, because if you just click on this ellipsis and click on settings in a new tab and go to community nodes here on the left, click on install a community node and copy this piece of text in our community page. and paste that here. Click on this checkbox and click on install. And there you go. You successfully installed the n8n MCP node. So now if we go back to our workflow and do a right click and click on add node, if you type in MCP, you should be able to find this MCP client along with this box icon at the right, which tells you that it is a node from the open source community. So just click on that. And for this example, let's use the list available tools action. So just click here. So when you did that, you can see that it just created this MCP list tools client, which we will just use to illustrate how MCP works. So just double click there and rename it to something like MCP list tools tester. And to set this up, just click on create new credential. And you can see that it is asking for a couple things here: command, arguments, and environments. So what are those? Well, if you go back to our analogy from a while ago, this is basically the part where you provide the ingredients, descriptions, and instructions to your AI agent through the MCP recipe book. And in our community, if you just go to this MCP servers lists, this is basically going to give you a few directories of where to find those recipe books. So this one is the most popular, so let's look at that first. And this is quite a long document, but you can see there are links here to 300 plus applications which your AI agent can connect to via MCP, which is quite neat because there's so many options that you can do. And in fact, if you go to this URL in our community called mcphub.io, there's even some search engines now which let you find the MCP servers for your use case. But for our use case to illustrate, the one that we will be using is the service called Apify. So if you just click on their link here, which you can also find here in our community, you can see that this provides some documentation around Apify's MCP server. And if in case you don't know what Apify is, it's basically a service that integrates a lot of web scrapers. So you can see there's one here on Google Maps, which we will be using in a bit, and a few others around TikTok, Amazon, and a couple more. So once you get to use this, you basically will be able to scrape and get a lot of data from different platforms, depending on your use case. But for our purpose, the key thing that we want to understand is how to use this MCP server in n8n. So what you just need to do is to find npx, and that will directly take you through this instruction sheet, which basically gives you the building block to connect n8n to your MCP server of choice. You just need to copy this command called npx into n8n here in the command, and then also copy the arguments. So just copy that in and paste it here, but you will just need to remove the double quotes and the comma there. So it's going to be -y and then this piece of text that calls on the Apify MCP server. And then for the environment, instead of actually pasting this one, just go ahead and go back to our community and copy this piece of text. And just so you can see your text, just change that to expression and then paste that in. And for my testing, this sort of format is the one that works. And now you were able to feed this MCP connection that we are setting up with the building blocks it needs to make use of the Apify MCP server. So the npx command basically instructs n8n to execute the MCP server's code, which is available in this directory that is being hosted by Apify. And the password that basically lets you access Apify servers is going to be your Apify token here, which if you go to apify.com and just head to go to console once you've signed up, you can just head to settings here on the left, click on APIs and integrations, and you can create a new token here, give it a description and click on create. And now if you copy that Apify key, you can replace this part within the brackets into that key that you have and just rename this credential to something like Apify so that you know that it is connecting to Apify's MCP server. So now if you click on test step and with your operations set as list tools, what it basically did there is connect to Apify's MCP server, and n8n asks the server what tools is available in its arsenal. And if you just scroll down here, there's a couple ones already provided and supported, which if you go to schema, it's much easier to work through that. And if I just collapse some of these, you'll be able to see this specific tool, which we'll be using to extract Google Maps data with. And again, back to our analogy, if the MCP server is the recipe book, then each of these tools would be the recipe pages, where the tool or action's name is given here, the description of the recipe is given here. And you can see for this given MCP server, there are 5 recipe pages or tools which you can make use of. So if you click away, that's well and good. Now, the last thing we just want to show before we go and complete our AI agent is just go ahead and add a node and search for MCP again. And this time, choose execute a tool and then name this as something like MCP execute tool tester. Because this is just a good way for you to test yourself how to connect to this MCP server before you instruct your AI agent to do that for you. So just go ahead and place that here. And you can see it's basically asking for a tool name and tool parameters. So this is going to be the name of our recipe in this case, and the parameters are going to be the ingredients that we will be providing it. So as mentioned before, the tool name that we'll be using is this one. So if you just head to our community and copy that in, you can just paste that here, making sure that letter capitalization and spaces are accounted for. And then under tool parameters, if you head back to our community and just scroll down to execute tool tester, just copy that in, change that to expression, and then paste that in. And now if you look at this, it's basically the ingredients that you will be executing this tool with, which is the query for the location. In this case, we'll try out Sydney. Max scrolled places per search is going to be the quantity of listings that we will get, and restaurants is our search string. So now before you hit on test step, it's just good to install this tool from within your Apify dashboard first so you can see the runs happening in real time. So to do that, just go to your Apify console and then click on Apify Store and then search for that tool in particular. So if you search for Google Maps, it should be one of the very first results there, which we of course also link in our community. So you can just click on that and it will take you to the tool that we will be using. That this service incurs some cost. So currently it's at $9 for 1,000 results, which is actually good value and not really a blocker for most people, hopefully. So now if you click on test step here, as it executes, when you go back to the tool within Apify and click on runs, you should see that there is one run here where we are starting the crawler. And this is n8n reaching out to Apify in order to get some information from Google Maps. And now that that is done, if we go back to n8n, you'll see that it gave us some information here on 2 restaurants in Sydney, which is what we need. And now we have validated that we are able to connect to Apify and execute this tool using MCP. So just go ahead and click away and click this bin icon just to clear out the execution there. So now we are ready to provide that tool to our AI agent. So just click on tool here on the bottom. Again, search for MCP. Use this MCP client tool and just rename this to something like MCP Google Maps. So this is important because the AI agent actually looks at this name to determine if they need to use this tool or not as well. So for the credential to connect with, the Apify credential should appear there for you already. And then for tool description, you can leave that as to be set automatically. And then for the operation, we of course want to execute that tool. And then for the tool name, again, just put in that same tool name as before. But now under tool parameters, what you want to do is head back to our community page and find this tool parameters for AI agent, copy that in, change this to expression, and then copy that whole piece. So if I just expand this just to show what it looks like, you can see that it's the same ingredients as before. So we're giving it a location query, max scroll places per search. So these are all as per the tool's documentation, what it needs in order to run, as well as the search string, which is the keyword that we are searching. In the previous step, we were looking at restaurants. And also I just added this one, skip closed places, so that we skip the places that have already permanently closed. But you can see that I have a piece of text here, which starts with from AI. And this is actually a unique function that n8n has, which is quite genius actually. Because when you use this function, you basically let the AI agent define what to put within this area. So if, for example, I ask it for 5 restaurants in Japan, the AI agent can get the context from that request and put Japan here, put 5 in here because that's the number of restaurants that the user wants, and then put the keyword of restaurant here because that's, again, what the user wants to look for, which is pretty neat because that's the AI agent doing its own thinking on how to structure that request. So that is well and good. Click away. And now before we test this, the other thing that you just want to set up is by double clicking on this AI agent. And we want to provide this AI agent a system prompt by clicking on add option and click on system message. And again, if you head back in our community, you can just copy this whole thing and then change this to expression and copy the whole thing there. And now if we expand this piece, you can give this a read if you want, but this system prompt is going to basically be this AI agent's purpose in life. So you can see it's describing what the role of the AI agent is. You can see it's describing what are the tools that we will be setting up. One is this MCP Google Maps tool, which we just did, and a couple of other details, which I'll go back to in a bit. But for now, click away so that we can test it out and click on save. So now if we open chat and ask it for something like, give me 2 dentists in New York, you can see that it is now going to use the MCP Google Maps tool to get you those 2 dentists in New York. And again, if we go back to Apify, you can see that the crawler has been started to get us that information. And there you go. You can see that it was able to give us 2 dentists in New York. Now, if it took some time for you like it did with me, you can actually double click your AI agent and go to logs here in the output section and just inspect the logs here to see what could have gone wrong. At least for our case, and maybe what will happen for you as well, is it likely tried repeating the process because it was not yet able to upload information to Google Drive because we haven't set up that yet. But that should be okay because that is what we'll be setting up next. So just click the bin icon here to remove that instance, and now click on Tool and set up your Google Drive by clicking on this Google Drive tool. And then to set this up, you will need a credential to connect with. And for you to do that, just click on Create New Credential. And you can see that it is asking for your client ID and client secret here. So to get that, I actually link here a tutorial from previously, which you can just click, and that will take you to a 1-minute tutorial of how to set this up in Google Cloud so that you can get your client ID and client secret. So once you have that set up, you can just go ahead and sign in with Google, and that should connect your account to n8n. Now, for some instances, if you are facing this view where it's asking for the authorization URL and grant types, you can just fill in these details, which we have also made available in our community page. So just click away. And now you should have a Google Drive account credential connected here. And the only configs you need to change is set the operation as create from text. And for the file content, you can actually just click on this sparkles icon, and that will allow your AI agent to define what to put here automatically, which is pretty neat. And then for the file name, you can just name this with whatever, honestly. But if you want, you can also just copy this piece in our community and just change this to expression and put it there. And what that will basically do is put in today's date as the file name. And then this piece is going to be your chat input, which you will see in a bit. Now for these pieces, you just need to select the folder where you want to put your files in. For my case, I pointed towards this R27 folder, and that's it. You have now successfully set up Google Drive. So now if you click away, click on save and open chat. And now we can try something like get 3 pizza places in New York. You can see that it has provided us with information on those pizza places and have now gave us the CSV file. So if you click on that, it's properly named with today's date as well as the query that we just gave. And if you open that, it gave us all the information we need, including this lead score, a reasoning for that score, and a draft email that we can start with to contact this lead. And if we go back to Apify under the runs of that tool that we are calling, if you click on that specific run that we did, you can see that it also gives you this URL, which is quite neat because with that, you can preview the locations of those establishments which you just searched for. So if you just click on that, it will provide you the results neatly laid out in Google Maps. So now just to go back to that system prompt, if you double click on the AI agent and just expand the system prompt here, it's just important to go through this once so that you can edit it to your liking. Because as mentioned, this early portion is just around giving the agent awareness around the tools that it has access to, such as the MCP Google Maps tool, as well as the Google Drive tool. And then a few critical requirements around the formatting, just to make sure that the CSV format is not messed up. But you can see here that these columns, we are getting them from Apify. And there's actually a few more columns available there, but in my analysis, these are the ones that are most relevant. You can also see here the prompt that is being used to come up with the lead score, an example of the reasoning, and an example of the draft email. And the instructions here are quite important, so have a read through them. But basically, the way that the agent is analyzing the lead is to see if, number one, they have a website. If they don't have a website, then obviously that's a service that you can offer to them as well. If they have low reviews, then maybe their review management is not up to spec and could use an assist. It also checks for image counts. So if there's only something like 1 to 3 images of their food as a restaurant, then you can offer them services in that regard so that they have more photos of their menu. If they don't have a lot of social media presence, that's also something that can be provided. And lastly, their Google Business Profile, which is basically their listing profile in Google Maps. This is important because if it's unclaimed, that means that they're listed in Google Maps, but the owner has never probably seen that. And so they probably have never seen the reviews that are available there. And so this portion is just the instructions around getting the lead score and the personalized email. And there are just a few more formatting prompts here just to make sure that it is correctly following your instructions. You can of course chat to your agent here, but if you just switch this to active and open this trigger, you can toggle this chat to be publicly available, and it will provide you this chat URL, which you can click and paste in another window, and it will provide you a chat interface that is much easier to work with and which you can even start to provide to your client if you are offering this as a service. And there you go. You just learned what MCP is, what the top 3 ways to make money with MCP is right now, and also build your very first AI agent that is powered by the Model Context Protocol. This is obviously still the beginning, and so for sure, this will not be the last that we will hear of MCP. So if you like this lesson, do give a like and subscribe. It helps us a lot. And if you want to further your learning, then check out the RoboNuggets community just in the link in the video description. We have dozens of other lessons here around artificial intelligence and automation and how to get ahead in this space. And these are also step-by-step tutorials with all of the resources and prompts available here in each of the lessons. And we also have a growing community of more than 1,000 AI professionals who are doing really great work and sharing learnings as well in this journey with exploring AI. So if you want access to step-by-step tutorials that make AI easy to learn and earn from, along with ready-to-load automation blueprints for each one of them, and finally, a community of AI professionals that can help you learn about AI, then check out the RoboNuggets community just in the link in the video description. That's it for now. See you guys next time. Thank you.